Hello, world. I'm back. And it's going to be one hell of a night. I guarantee you that. And each one of us is holding a picture because Brother Shep brought some pictures, and each one is blowing a picture of what interests us. I always loved this picture when I was a kid, Ewing. And this is Erika.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Erika Ewing.
And this is Rocky.
Hey, my name's Rocky Lotito.
I met Rocky at CI meeting, and Rocky teaches people on Rikers Island how to debate. And who are you holding, Rocky?
Yeah.
Looks like a pig wearing a blindfold.
A pig.
A low-natured beast that has no regard for law, justice, or the rights of people. A creature that bites the hand that feeds it. A foul, depraved traducer, usually found masquerading as the victim of an unprovoked attack.
Wow, Rocky has gone real radical.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Brother Shep. And who are you holding, Brother Shep?
Okay, just so Rocky knows, that picture is by Brother Emory Douglas, who was our Minister of Culture for the Black Panther Party. I have Brother Malcolm. Okay, Brother Malcolm just came from the gravesite this last month, and that's what inspires me and keeps me going as to who I am and what I'm about. You know, that's why you see Malcolm here, Malcolm there.
And last but not least, we have Karen. Karen is the people's voice, and we also want to get her to be our voice here and to be the people's voice here with us, my Latino co-host. I want you to call in people and tell Karen, you see Karen on the street, say, we want you.
Hello, everyone. So I am holding here Sister Angela Davis. So I'm actually a co-facilitator for the New York City People Power Movement Revolutionary Women's Book Club. And right now we're actually reading Assata Shakur's autobiography. But we're always about building sisterhood and being able to build as strong women leaders, because we're organizers and we are here for the people, always for the people.
Right on.
And let us begin. Who wants to start first? Who has a burning issue they want to talk about? Go for it.
Okay.
First of all, I'm Brother Shep. I was in the original Black Panther Party, you know, back in the early 70s, and which is why we have these posters here. Burning issue for me basically is talking about this poster that's right behind me. It says "Free the Panthers." All throughout the late 60s and through the early 70s and then even to the early 80s, we have many revolutionaries, freedom fighters here in this country who stood up against the oppressor, organized in the community, and they were framed and set up under the FBI's counterintelligence program. And then after that, the Project New Kill and Chesmar, to set up a lot of our revolutionaries, mostly coming from the New African Independence Movement and the Black Panther Party. And the sad thing is that after 45 and 50 years, there are still Panthers in prison. Most people don't even know their names. They've been forgotten, ostracized, and they still labor in these prisons. Many of them have died in prison, and they need to come home. You know, we say 50 years is long enough. It's time to bring the Panthers home. You know, there's just recently that movie that came out, the Black Panther, Marvel superhero Panther. And we use that because we say use culture as a weapon for liberation. So we went to the theaters and we interviewed people after they saw the film, just asking them, well, do you know there's real Black Panthers still alive? And most people didn't know that. They said, what? Really? They still are? And so we gave out information, we gave out cards on how to get in touch with them, how to write to them, and how to support that to get them and bring them home.
You have the statistics on when you was doing those interviews in front of the movies and stuff?
Well, that's something that you're actually going to see. We actually filmed the interviews.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
We got to see that. Check
and we
out.
going to supplement that with a panel discussion for some other Panthers who were not there.
That sounds beautiful.
To talk about that film and
right.
different things that needs to be done with it. So that's going to come out this year because this is our 50th anniversary of the Black Panther Party, and we have a film festival every year at the Maisel Cinema in Harlem. So stay tuned. We'll give you the information before we go off the air how to get in touch.
I went on a tour with Shep at the Schaumburg for the Panther exhibit.
Do that, yeah.
And then I started thinking that we need, and it wasn't only Shep there, it was about 5 or 6 other Panthers that was there. And I said, wow, this is going to be my Back to the Future segment, because we need to, all us young people coming into the struggle and the resistance, we need to learn from the Panthers of old, how they got to be where they were and things like that, so we can sidestep some of the pitfalls and the mistakes they made and do better this time. We need to learn from them to move on. Karen?
Yes?
Come on, you didn't leave it over there, did you?
No. Oh, stop. My God, no. Okay, so I'm a community organizer with People Power Movement. So we are a truly democratic grassroots organization. Our biggest collective right now is in the Bronx. Back in December in 2016, 2 babies were murdered in 720 Hunts Point in the Bronx. Why do we say murder? Because the radiator was very old, it was neglected. The whole building had a lot of issues, a lot of violations, and tenants did complain about it. But of course, the politicians, the mayor, the system being the system that it is, being the capitalist system, were neglectful, and they did not respond to that. So therefore, the radiator blew up. It killed the babies. Parents were, of course, in distress. And so that was a main campaign that we've been working on since then, to be able to expose the system for what it is and being able to rally people on that and letting people know that, yes, we have housing issues, but it's also connected to healthcare, it's connected to education, it's connected to the criminal justice system, and being able to tie all the issues together and knowing that it has a root. And being able to get to the root is why we as an organization say we need fundamental social change, not just any change, but really fundamental, get into the root. Because if you're just going to sugarcoat and Band-Aid and put a temporary thing, it doesn't do much. And a part of that is being able to politicize yourself. And Brother Shep and I were speaking earlier, and he was saying, popular education, political education, that aspect, without that, that's striking number one. Without that, how are you going to guide your practice, and how are you going to organize, and how are you going to be for the people? And you can't say you're for the people and then you're going to have a meeting or rally somewhere else. Like, if you're in the Bronx with the working class, you need to be able to organize in the Bronx. If you're organizing in Brooklyn, you need to be in the community and not having people from Brooklyn traveling elsewhere, who knows where. So it's important to have that aspect and to organize and to agitate. So I'm all about building power. I'm always open to hearing all perspectives, different organizations, but I do align myself, of course, with People Power Movement, any grassroots organizations that seek for fundamental social change and that see anti-racist as a key struggle in the movement fighting for the dismantling of capitalism. So,
Damn, she be having that Latino fire thing
God.
going on there. When she get going, and once she gets going, she be like, You want to say something?
Yeah,
Erika?
I wanted to say, one of the major things that Gotta Stop is doing is our campaign on human trafficking, sex trafficking, sexual assault, child abuse, domestic violence, and I'm going to have to put this out there, molestation.
Yes.
And what we're finding about, one, it's a billion-dollar business, so there's guns, and then there's human trafficking, which covers labor trafficking, sex trafficking. And when you're talking about capitalism, it's really interesting. People do not know where their dollars are going. And once you do know better, you do better. And once you can understand where the source is, as you said, the root is, then you can start to think about how you dismantle. And sometimes it's not from just not going into the store. Right. It could be people just quitting that they really need. It's so funny. It's like, if you think about it, if everybody in New York City, if the people who clean the buildings in the city were to leave the city.
Yep.
I'm talking about the people who clean sanitation.
The working class.
I'm talking about the little private companies, or not so private, or the labor trafficking companies that have people clean office buildings decide to go on strike. Tell me what we'd be in terms of just take one day.
Right.
Just takes one day.
Yep.
And so I really, really, really want to think about how we really get to those roots and where they live. Because a lot of times for us, sometimes it starts in the home, and then people, as you know, in debate, they basically go in for the kill off of brokenness, right? So sex trafficking, human trafficking is a business built off of brokenness. So I know exactly where to get you, how to coerce you, right? Where your vulnerabilities are. And I think that that's the part of the having conversations that we need to be warm up to. Because people don't want to show their vulnerabilities. Although they want to see that you're vulnerable, they may not want to show you that they're vulnerable. I think that's the beauty between you and I. We're both vulnerable, and we showed that vulnerability. We're having conversations and connecting.
It's getting to a point where you have the courage to do that. Because I wasn't always like this. And there was a time when you go through your little, idiosyncrasies where you worrying about what other people think. Getting older, I realized, what the hell do I care? What do you think? You can never please everyone.
You can't.
You're gonna hurt yourself trying to, just do you, be happy. That's a learning process. You got to get there. Not everyone's there.
Right.
You can try and even tell people, but they don't understand. They don't understand. What do you think about that, Rocky?
I think that this is all great. I mean, it's interesting. I say it's great because I hear about all the great work that's being done and all the different areas that there are to do work in. It's not just the core racial issues. It's taking care of the buildings that people are living in. It's sex trafficking. It's all those ancillary issues. Homelessness, incarceration, drug problems. I mean, you can go down the list. And the problem with grassroots organizing in New York is New York City is like dealing with a state. And New York State is like dealing with a country. It's big, and there are a lot of moving parts. And so it's great to see the power of this organizing and the power of actually making this change. And to go back to what was said about political education, I have always thought that that's the number one thing to get people off their butts and get people doing stuff, especially because when you look back, I mean, you talk about the Black Panther movement. I think when most people think of the Black Panthers, they think of an organization that existed in the 60s and 70s of young black men with guns. They don't think of the community organizing of all the great things that were done. Just like, we were talking about Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. before. I think MLK has become this white folk hero over the years, that the image of him has been twisted in this way that people kind of use now, where a person like Donald Trump can lecture you and say, oh, well, MLK wouldn't have liked that, which is, so you really need the education to know what has been going on, what the world is like. I don't like using the term woke, but there's really not a better term for it.
I use conscious.
Conscious is a good one. I like that. To kind of step back and look at the world and say, all this is not normal. All this doesn't need to exist. That with the stroke of a pen, we can make so many changes, and we just need to convince the right people and make those changes. So I think it's so awesome what everybody in this room does. I try every day to take actions to make changes, but everybody has to do their part. It's little by little, and everybody in this room is doing that part. So
and so that's why I believe, for me and for God to Stop, it's not a movement, it's a lifestyle. That's why it's through fashion. That's why it's when I walk, it's the words, it's the narrative that I want to put on my body, but I also want to walk in that. I want to be reminded of that, even when I'm coming to my own insecurities and my own vulnerabilities or my own fears. Start to say, stop that. Just stop that. Just stop that. And sometimes it's being still, right? And so I think it's really important. Like, I love that Brother Shep was able to say, all right, read this. Give me homework. I'm a lifelong learner. That's
Always
what
learning.
I want to do. That's what we want to model, and we have to continue to do that. And then I also do say, with us all learning about what happened before, I still want to hear the book of Brother Shep. I still want to hear the book of Brother Rocky, right? I want to hear the book of Sister Karen, right? I just think that we're writing our own books as well. And we have to also credit ourselves for that as well, because we're walking this walk, and it's not an easy walk, and when you told me like, oh, there were new Panthers and now they're gone and it's free the Panthers that are still in jail. I mean, it's like wow, right? And when you saw Beyonce's Super Bowl thing, it was again how things are dressed up, the narrative. But that's the story that should have been told, right? We're giving ode to something that's still alive. It's not dead.
Speaking about that, what did you think about Giuliani's comment on Beyonce's Super Bowl thing?
His initial comment. If I can remember what he says.
Yeah, what did he say?
What was it again?
He said it's disgraceful her dressing up like the Panthers and stuff like that after they kill cops.
Oh yeah.
And if anyone really knows the story, they know that's not what happened. The police were murdering the Panthers.
They the ones, yeah. It was out of defense that the Black Panther did that. It's not like they was killing them.
How things have come.
Of course.
Over the years, they didn't switch it around. But if you were there, you realize that.
In my book, a Republican calling somebody else a killer is the pot calling the kettle black, right? You can take so many things that Rudy Giuliani did as mayor of New York, the things that he supports, the things he's trying to do now. Exactly. So that's
trying to subvert the law and everything. Oh my God, don't talk about
Let me jump in here real quick because y'all covered a lot of stuff.
And then I'm gonna go right after you.
I don't play, man.
I'm going right after you, bro.
I want to start out with the last thing that was said. Matter of fact, when that Super Bowl came out and all that whole incident, so-called incident came out, we were actually in the street for that. We went out. There was supposed to be a big anti-Beyonce demonstration.
Oh,
really?
Yeah. So we organized, to get out there, and 3 people showed up to be anti, but the police are the ones promoting all of that.
Of course.
But they didn't show up.
Of course.
But just looking at that whole thing, that was actually during the 50th anniversary of the party's founding itself. This year is the 50th for New York State and a couple of other chapters, which incidentally happened after King was killed. A lot of chapters popped up at that point. But that said, what you mentioned before, just a minute ago, Rocky, about the war that took place, and we were at war, but we didn't start it. Okay, it didn't really start until our programs got put out. They were never afraid of the guns. Right. They were never afraid of us because, as far as militarily, that was not a threat. Right. The threat came with our survival programs.
Right.
I mean, we had a relationship with the farmers in the South, black farmers, where they would send up produce, and that would help us with our breakfast programs and our food programs.
Of course.
Okay, what they did was, one of the diabolical things they did, they put LSD in the oranges. So that way, when the oranges came up, they would say the Panthers are giving the kids drugs. So that was like one of the ways they used to attack our survival programs. That's when that statement was made that we were the greatest threat to the internal security of the United States.
Who's security?
Once that happened, that was like it was like the green light.
Sure.
So that's when they started shooting our officers up, shooting us up, attacking us. You saw the paper. We had thousands and thousands of arrests. So instead of our money and funds going to our programs, we had to get people out on bail. There was just an overall attack, and as a result of that, we believed in self-defense. We would defend ourselves. But of course, it got to a point where we had to go on the offensive. Because it was a war. So anytime you hear about cop killers, they were killing cops, they killed us too. There were casualties on both sides. So somewhere along the line, it has to be recognized that there was a war on the black community in general, and on the Black Panthers and the RNA in particular. Okay, all that said, the programs you were talking about, Rocky, that we do now. Okay, we have a 14-week workshop that we do. It's called Anti-Police Terror and Community Control Over the Police. Okay, where we train people to be certified facilitators, so they can go out and teach other people how to do this. It's know your rights is included in that, but it's more than that. Because we teach you how to organize and structure your neighborhood or your community, whether it be the projects or whatever, so that God forbid the police kill someone in the neighborhood, you're not running to some charlatan like Sharpton or somebody like that to get on TV, but you're ready to do it. You have your lawyers on retainer, you have your private investigators, your forensic experts, all the people that you need to go to trial with. You already have that. You also have a structure that's set up so that you can immediately go have your media committee, your fundraising committee, your outreach committee, All these things are already set up inside your neighborhood. And everybody's trained how to do it, so you automatically go and you got your war chest already.
That's
'cause
sustaining.
You did all your fundraising, you got all your money in the war chest, so you can go out and take care of dealing with that situation. So you have to run to somebody else and get used, in the long run, and so that you're ready to move. That's good for that, but it's good for everything else because we always believe in community control. Control over educational system, control over the medical
Public
system,
transportation.
Yeah.
transportation.
Everything.
Anything in your community should be controlled by the
By
community.
the people.
Right.
And not by people from the outside,
Right.
which is what's going on right now.
Right.
Right.
So that's where we're going.
And that's why you need
That's
people
what we
power.
need to, that's why we need to teach
Right.
how to do that.
Do you know about the programs run by the Bronx Defenders and
Yes,
the
I was gonna
Justice
mention that.
Committee?
Yeah, we're actually going to do the workshops there.
All right.
What day? You got the dates
We're
locked down?
going to lock them down next week.
Okay, all
We'll
right.
just talk to
Perfect.
them there.
Wonderful.
start
Good,
them
good. I
was gonna
like
mention
those. I
Bronx
like
Defenders.
those.
Yeah, because
things.
they have the space. They said they needed some
Yeah,
things,
Carmen
so
is great
we're going to
with
be
that.
there.
Okay.
You connected
good,
with Carmen.
Good, good,
Yeah.
good.
It's my sister.
Good, because after they get that up and going, I want to come on here and tell the people about that. The Bronx Defenders have a program where they're monitoring with the DAs. They want to monitor because I
That's
keep
one of them.
getting them mixed up. Because the Bronx Defenders wants to monitor the DAs, the Justice Committee wants to monitor the courtrooms.
Right.
What's going on there. And I think both of those are great programs, especially for the way our people get railroaded. Keep an eye on them. Watch what
Even
they're
in line
doing.
with that, we have a campaign that we actually put all together. But the last piece, the most important piece, was the community getting involved in it. So we have to put it on the back burner for that right now. But it's to put a referendum on the ballot box for community control of your neighborhood, of the police. There's 51 council districts in New York. So all 51 don't have to do this, but in our neighborhoods, we need to have control over the police, which means that
Yep.
there's 5 tiers to it. Number 1, no police officer can work in your neighborhood unless they live there. If they live there, they have a vested interest in the community. Their children go to the same schools. They shop in the same stores. Everybody knows each other. So if Johnny is messing around with the car, he don't get shot in the back of the head. Johnny gets stopped and he gets a visit that night by Officer Brown, who lives 2 blocks down the block from him. So you have that type of relationship because the cops live there. I'm not talking about community policing because they still come from outside of our neighborhoods.
Right.
They don't know, they don't care. That's the one tier. The second thing is that precinct commander, has to be elected to be the precinct commander, not appointed by some central, apparatus that just transfer them here and there when they mess up. No, they have to run for office, just like a sheriff runs for office in a small town, and become that precinct commander. Number 3, you have an oversight board that's, again, elected by the community. They have the power to hire and fire those cops. They have the power to provide that oversight. If anything else is wrong or needs to be done, that's what things go to, that committee, which is elected by the community. Then you have a special prosecutor, preferably someone who's a defense attorney. And they have totally nothing to do with the district attorney's office. It's independent, voted in by the community, and they're there to make sure that if a cop does some stupid thing, that they can get charged and they can be dealt with, on that level. So you look at those areas, that's community control, which we talked about back in the 60s. And all you have to do, because we know the city council's not, they could do it, but they're not gonna do it. So the people can do that. So we tell people register to vote. You ain't gotta vote for no politician, but you vote for your community.
For your community.
You put that referendum on that ballot box and you vote for community control of your neighborhood, it gets passed, you control the police, And so that's just another thing, but it has to be organized. Unfortunately, in New York, we got like dozens of groups dealing with police brutality. And it's like pulling teeth for them to come together to deal with one particular issue.
Right.
But this is something anybody can do. If your organization's about, retribution, taking them out, you can still do it. If you're just about reform, you can still do it. You can do, anybody can be involved in this, All you're doing is you're voting for your community.
But, I want to just say something because I think that you hit on something very, very, very good when you talk about Wakanda and the Black Panthers and what we were talking about, the natural resources within our community, and knowing that it's not just about taking over, it's about we already have the resources there.
That's right.
It's not like we cannot find a criminal defense attorney
Right.
in our community that looks like us,
Right.
right? That was born and raised there. It's not like we can't find it. So I think there's the myth about, do we exist? One, do we exist? And the other thing I want to say is, if we're going to go to the police, can we go right to the Board of Education? Because if you're a teacher, you should be able to work
be able to,
in the,
yeah.
because I came from a community on Long Island where everybody worked basically in your neighborhood. So you had to look at that teacher, right, at the mall.
Yeah.
And she had to come
Shopping.
see you. Now, if
right.
you had a problem, it was tension for both
right.
ends.
That's
I
right.
know your kids, right? So it was a little bit different about the accountability about if I say something to this child, or if I abuse this child, or if I misabuse the teacher, or say something I'm not supposed to say, it's going to come back.
That's right.
And so there was something to say about that small town, but we all kind of live in our neighborhoods in small towns.
That's right. Yeah.
So we again, mythological. Oh, it's so big, it's so big. Actually, I see like the same people almost every day, right? And they know me, or they
Small
know
world.
me. They know my spirit. I
Yeah.
mean, I know my name, but it's good to see them in the morning,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know, looking at these things in a political context. Okay. So then, when I was in the party, they taught us dialectical materialism. And, basically how to analyze and use critical thinking to see how
Right,
things
to see
are.
how it
So you question yourself. I mean, I mentioned the word matrix before. All right. Why are things like this?
Right.
Okay.
There's a reason, yeah.
Is it part of those distractions that are put out? You have the media that lies to you.
Of course,
You
corporate media.
have, all the distractions that are around you. And
Advertisements.
then you have this new technology, which every week there's a new phone.
Yeah.
That's more advanced than the other phone.
To continue
And then
the
people
system.
they're into this. So while you're all
No, I
into
am.
all of that and being distracted with that,
Right.
somebody's controlling you.
Right. It's about
Okay?
control the
And
masses.
so then why
yeah.
they're controlling you and why
What
this
was
is
that?
Controlling the masses.
yeah.
I'm going to
true.
say something about
It's true,
rats.
the
Rats have been here for centuries.
Oh yeah.
Well, since they came from Europe.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
but for centuries.
Uh-huh.
And there's certain rats, not in certain places. There's certain places you can find rats.
And roaches.
That too.
And I'm going to just say, follow the rats. Follow the rats.